His camera was pointed at him for 9 seconds. He was masked. He was armed. He was on a porch in the Catalina foothills of Tucson, Arizona at 2 in the morning. And he made one mistake, not a small mistake, not a careless mistake, a mistake so specific, so embedded in the body, so deeply wired into muscle memory that he almost certainly did not notice he was making it. A mistake that was captured on camera, published by the FBI, written about in hundreds of articles, and invisible, completely, entirely invisible, for 54 days, until someone gave it a name. This video is about that mistake. It is about why it was invisible for so long. It is about what it tells investigators about who he is, where he has been, and how his own body may be the thing that finally identifies him. And it is about the 4 other things that were sitting in plain sight on that street for weeks, visible to every neighbor, every reporter, every investigator who walked past, and unseen by all of them. Not because they were hidden, because no one had yet built the frame to see them. Her name is Nancy Long Guthrie. She is 84 years old. She has lived in the Catalina foothills of Tucson, Arizona for more than 5 decades. She raised 3 children alone after her husband Charles died in Mexico in 1988. She attended virtual church services every Sunday morning. She wore a pacemaker. She removed her hearing aids every night before sleep. On the night of January 31st, 2026, her son-in-law Tommaso Cioni drove her home after a family dinner. He watched her go inside. The garage door closed at 9:50 p.m. She was never seen again. According to what Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos confirmed publicly, at 1:47 a.m. on February 1st, the doorbell camera at the front of her home disconnected from the network, manually. At 2:12 a.m., a motion sensor detected a presence on the property with no camera to capture it. At 2:28 a.m., her pacemaker disconnected from her phone. 41 minutes. 41 minutes from the moment the camera went dark to the moment Nancy was moved beyond Bluetooth range of her phone. And then on February 10th, 9 days after she was reported missing, the FBI released footage recovered from her Nest doorbell camera. 9 seconds of a masked figure at her front door. 9 seconds that the entire country watched. 9 seconds that contained the mistake. And for 54 days, nobody saw it. Not the investigators, not the analysts, not the millions of people who watched that footage and shared it and studied it frame by frame. Nobody. And the reason why is the most important thing this video will show you. In 1999, 2 psychologists at Harvard ran an experiment that changed how scientists understood the human mind. They asked volunteers to watch a short video of people passing a basketball. The task was simple. Count how many times the players in white shirts passed the ball. Most people counted accurately, and approximately half of all volunteers completely failed to notice the person in the gorilla suit who walked directly through the middle of the frame, stopped, faced the camera, and walked out. Not a peripheral blur, not a quick flash in the corner. A full gorilla suit, center frame. 9 seconds on screen. The researchers, Christopher Chabris and Daniel Simons, called what they had discovered inattentional blindness. The mind, when focused on a task, does not simply reduce attention to other things. It eliminates them. They become functionally invisible, not because we are stupid, not because we aren't trying, but because the human brain is not a camera. It is an editor. It decides what matters, cuts everything else from the frame entirely. Here is why that matters to this case. For 54 days, every investigator, every analyst, every reporter, every viewer watching that 9-second clip was doing the same thing as those Harvard volunteers. They were counting basketball passes. They were watching the backpack, the holster, the mask, the height, the build. The way he moved toward the camera, and the gorilla walked straight through the frame, right there, in the footage, published by the FBI, written about in hundreds of articles, visible to everyone, invisible to all of them. Before we go further, if you are watching this channel for the first time, this is the silence case. Every claim in this video is attributed to a named source. Every piece of evidence is documented and publicly confirmed. We do not speculate. We do not name suspects. We analyze what the evidence shows. If that is the kind of analysis you are looking for, subscribe now and hit the notification bell. because what we are about to walk through has not been assembled this way anywhere else. There is a detail in that 9-second clip that has been sitting in plain sight since February 10th. It has a name now, and after this video, you will never watch that footage the same way again. Let's continue. The FBI released the doorbell camera footage on February 10th, 2026. The image that immediately dominated every headline was the backpack. Black, 25-liter. Ozark Trail Hiker Pack, later identified from purchase records by investigators. Then the holster. Analysts noted it immediately. The fit was wrong. According to what crime scene investigator Cheryl McCollum confirmed publicly, the holster appeared to be a one-size-fits-all cheap model. It did not fit the weapon properly. Then the mask, the gloves, the height, 5'9" to 5'10", average build according to the FBI's public description. Then the movement, the way he approached the camera, the way he reached for the door handle first, testing it, the way he pulled leaves from a nearby plant and tried to hang them over the lens rather than simply breaking the camera, which he could have done in seconds with any rock from the surrounding desert landscape. According to what McCollum confirmed publicly, he walked past 100 rocks. He chose leaves. Every analyst who reviewed that footage said the same thing in different words. This person is not a professional. According to what McCollum confirmed publicly, a professional would have been in and out. The weapon handling was wrong. The holster was wrong. The choice to obscure rather than destroy the camera was wrong. But here is what nobody said in those first 54 days. Nobody said, look at his mouth. And because in the middle of all of that analysis, the backpack, the holster, the mask, the movement, the flashlight was there, between his teeth, pointed forward, both hands free, one sentence, 100 articles, 6 weeks. The gorilla stood center frame, and the brain filed it as background. And then someone gave it a name. Former homicide detective and police commander David Lyons, based in Lexington, Kentucky, was among the first analysts to stop on that sentence. He said, and this is a direct attribution from his public analysis, that not many people instinctively hold a flashlight in their mouth, but those who work in the trades might, such as an electrician or a plumber. He called it a small thing. He said, at the same time, down the road it could be something. That statement is not speculation. It is the cognitive act that inattentional blindness research tells us must happen before invisible things can be seen. Lyons was not simply noting that a flashlight was present. He was naming the category. He was identifying what kind of person holds a flashlight that way and placing that behavior inside the frame of a specific population. And once the frame exists, the single sentence that was invisible in 100 articles becomes the sentence you cannot stop turning over in your mind. Because this is not a generic behavior. It is not a behavior learned in a classroom, not in a barracks, not in a police academy. It is learned the way all physical habits are learned, through repetition, in context, over years. An electrician working inside a wall panel has both hands inside the cavity and cannot set the flashlight on a surface that does not exist. A plumber threading pipe beneath a floor joist is in the same position. An HVAC technician, a rough carpenter, a general contractor who has spent thousands of hours in tight spaces with inadequate overhead lighting. They all learn early and permanently that the solution is the mouth. The flashlight goes between the teeth. The hands stay free. The work continues. That posture is so occupation-specific that a retired homicide detective from Kentucky identified it from footage shot in Arizona and published his analysis in an AP Wire story that reached every major news outlet in the country. The detail was out there. The frame was available. And for 6 weeks, the sentence went unremarked upon in thousands of articles and comment sections and YouTube videos, because readers did not yet have a reason to stop on it. But here is what that detail tells investigators. It is not just a behavioral observation, it is a vocational fingerprint. And that fingerprint connects directly to the single most active line of inquiry in this investigation right now. According to what Brian Entin of News Nation confirmed publicly, the FBI has returned to the Catalina foothills neighborhood with a specific set of new questions. They are asking about construction workers, specifically workers employed on a home under construction near Nancy's property. A home whose owner confirmed to Enton that FBI agents visited and requested the names of everyone who had worked on that site. Although they are asking about former neighbors, people who lived in the area but moved out shortly before Nancy's disappearance. And according to what retired FBI agent Maureen O'Connell confirmed publicly, investigators have almost certainly subpoenaed the records of short-term rental platforms operating in the neighborhood, looking back not weeks but months. Now ask the inattentional blindness question. Why is the FBI asking about construction workers? Because a tradesperson working legitimately in a neighborhood has something no casual observer has. A reason to be there that no one questions. A truck parked on Via Entrada for 3 hours while an electrician works a nearby job is not suspicious. It is expected. It is background. Nobody takes a license plate. Nobody calls in a description. Nobody thinks twice about a man in work clothes walking the perimeter of a neighboring property to check on something. The professional context provides what the inattentional blindness research would identify as a categorical shield. The brain registers, tradesperson, working, not relevant, and moves on. And if that same person, on a front porch at 2 in the morning, with both hands occupied at a doorbell camera and a need for light, does what his body has always done, puts the flashlight between his teeth, that is not a decision. That is a body remembering what it was trained to do, and that is the mistake. But here is what that mistake does not explain on its own. It does not explain how he got there. It does not explain how he navigated a road with no streetlights, no visible signs, no landmarks whilst in complete darkness, without hesitation. It does not explain how he knew exactly when to come, exactly which turns to take, and exactly how to disappear, unless he had already been there before, multiple times in daylight. According to what investigative reporter John DePro confirmed publicly while covering this case on the ground in Tucson, Via Entrada, the road that runs through and around Nancy Guthrie's neighborhood, is, in his words, like a maze at night. No streetlights. You cannot see street signs in the dark. That description matters beyond the obvious navigation problem. A road that is disorienting after dark is by definition a road that requires prior knowledge to navigate with confidence. You cannot improvise on Via Entrada at 2 in the morning, while you cannot rely on instinct if you have never been there before. The road punishes strangers and rewards people who have already been there. People who have logged the turns, noted the landmarks, learned the points where the path forks, and know without seeing a sign which way to go. Now consider this. According to what investigators confirmed publicly, at 2:36 a.m. on February 1st, a Ring camera 2.5 miles from Nancy's home recorded a vehicle moving through a back road that avoids major intersections, moving away from the neighborhood. 2.5 miles, a back road, avoiding intersections, in complete darkness, without hesitation. Retired NYPD detective Pat Browen reviewed that 2:36 a.m. footage with his team. The silhouette, the roofline, the profile of the vertical brake lights. His analysis pointed toward a Kia Soul. That vehicle has not been publicly identified, but here is what that navigation tells us. The confidence required to move through an unlit maze at 2:36 in the morning on a back road that avoids intersections without hesitation does not come from luck. It comes from already knowing the route, from having driven it before, from having noted in daylight every turn that cannot be read in the dark. And 16 hours before that, at approximately 10 a.m. on January 31st, a suspicious vehicle was reported on Via Entrada. According to what investigators confirmed publicly through the neighborhood canvass request, the FBI committed full resources to finding footage from a specific 90-minute window on that road, 9:30 a.m. to 11 a.m. On January 31st. Investigative reporter Dave Mack, speaking on Crime Stories with Nancy Grace, described what the Bureau was pursuing. Every Ring doorbell camera, every security device pointing toward Via Entrada during that window. He said, it stuck out, and it stuck out during the daytime. That says a lot. He is right. 16 hours separate a car on Via Entrada at 10 a.m. from a pacemaker signal lost at 2:28 a.m. 16 hours between a road being studied in daylight and someone moving through it without hesitation in complete darkness. And the FBI also asked for footage from January 11th. 9 p.m. to midnight, 3 weeks before Nancy was taken. No public explanation has ever been given for why that date matters. But when investigators ask for footage without explaining why, it is because they do not yet want whoever left that footage to know they are looking. According to what crime scene investigator Cheryl McCollum confirmed publicly, the visits that investigators confirmed were made on January 11th, January 24th, and January 31st, all Saturdays, suggests something specific. The person came on weekends, only weekends, which raises a question that McCollum stated publicly and directly. Does that mean he works out of town during the week? Does that mean he is in school during the week? Whatever the answer, it narrows the suspect pool, because the pattern of Saturday visits across 3 consecutive weeks on a road that requires prior knowledge to navigate in the dark describes a person who was building something, and not improvising, building. And what was being built across those 3 Saturdays was operational certainty, the certainty that eliminates hesitation, that knows before the night arrives which lights will be on and which will be off, which neighbors walk dogs at 2 a.m. and which are reliably asleep, which camera angles cover which sections of the approach to a specific house on a specific road. 3 weeks of reconnaissance, conducted in plain sight, on a residential street, in ordinary daylight, by what appeared to be an ordinary vehicle on an ordinary road. The human mind does not flag ordinary. Ordinary is the background the foreground stands against. But that is not the detail that changes everything. This is, the internet went out, not at one house, not a single router glitch. According to what Brian Entin of News Nation first reported on March 6th, more than 30 days after the abduction, a neighbor whose Ring camera history showed a gap during the critical hours of February first mentioned it to Entin. The footage simply was not there. Then other neighbors confirmed the same thing. Camera gaps. Footage marked not available. The same window. The same night. Multiple houses. When investigators returned to the neighborhood, the specific question they brought with them was not, did you see anything? It was, did your internet go out that night? According to what NBC correspondent Liz Kreutz confirmed publicly, residents in 3 homes told Pima County deputies they were asked exactly that. Officers reportedly told residents several people mentioned glitches that night. That phrasing matters. Hamad investigators were not surprised. They were building a pattern. And the pattern was this. An entire neighborhood's surveillance infrastructure went dark, house by house, in a way that each resident experienced as their own private inconvenience, because none of them had a reason to compare notes with their neighbors. Each gap was normal. Together, they formed something that should not be possible. According to what Fox News digital reporter Michael Ruiz confirmed publicly, a damaged utility box was discovered around the corner from Nancy Guthrie's home. The Pima County Sheriff's Department confirmed it is investigating whether that box is connected to the outages. According to what retired FBI Special Agent Jennifer Coffindaffer publicly raised, investigators are privately examining whether someone damaged that box before February 1st to blind the neighborhood before they moved. And here is where the FBI footage adds a second layer. According to what criminal defense attorney Joshua Ritter confirmed publicly in analysis of the footage, an antenna-like device was visible in the suspect's pocket. Ritter made an important distinction. A Wi-Fi jammer deployed at the location of a single home would not necessarily create a neighborhood-wide outage. That would require high-powered military-grade equipment, which means if the outage was neighborhood-wide and the device in the suspect's pocket was a localized jammer, they are not the same tool, such that they are 2 separate instruments in a layered plan. One disrupted the neighborhood's infrastructure from the outside. One disrupted the specific camera on Nancy's porch from the inside. 2 methods, 1 outcome. A street with no witnesses, a house with no functioning camera. You do not improvise 2 methods. You do not arrive at a house with a jammer in your pocket and spontaneously decide to also damage a utility box around the corner. You plan them together. You understand that one method alone might not be enough, that some cameras are wired, that some systems store footage locally, That redundancy requires redundancy. You have thought about this at a level of operational detail that is not the fingerprint of desperation. It is the fingerprint of preparation. And a person who holds a flashlight in their mouth while working in the dark understands infrastructure. They understand what a utility box does. They understand where it is, because navigating utility infrastructure is the job. And then there is the fourth thing, the one that was the most visible of all, the one that stood in the Arizona sun for 50 days, the one that every neighbor, every reporter, every investigator walking that street walked past without stopping. Until a YouTube streamer read it. For 50 days, yellow items near Nancy Guthrie's home had been placed there by neighbors, community members, and grieving strangers. Flowers, candles, notes, banners. The visual category for yellow objects near that memorial was established and fixed. The brain passing yellow signs near that house filed them in the already existing category: community expression, memorial, background. On day 50, March 22nd, 2026, a YouTube streamer named Dad's Gone Live was on Nancy Guthrie Street, doing what he had been doing for weeks, watching, filming, staying present. And he noticed something that had been there long enough to be weathered by the Arizona sun. Yellow signs, handwritten, posted near the house. He called police. Pima County detectives arrived, examined the signs, and removed one as evidence. The signs read, Guthrie, and a second name, Carol Shemick. Below that, Yavapai Sheriff's Department. Lemons Roads, State Fire, Connolly. On a second sign, CBD 2273, a license plate number. Now ask the inattentional blindness question on why did nobody call this in before a YouTube streamer stopped and read it? The answer is categorization. For 50 days, yellow objects near that memorial meant grief. The brain filed the signs as community expression and moved on. The gorilla in the yellow suit walked straight through the frame until someone stopped the basketball count, read the words, and found 4 names that do not belong on a grief memorial. According to what public records and community accounts confirmed after the signs were discovered, Carol Shemick died on January 1st, 2020, in Chino Valley, Yavapai County, Arizona, 224 miles northwest of Tucson, a 3.5-hour drive. She was 74 years old. She ran a rock and jewelry shop. She was known locally for activism around water rights disputes in her rural community. The institutional names on the signs, Yavapai Sheriff's Department, Lemons Road State Fire, are references to that region, not to Tucson, not to Pima County. What followed Shemick's death in certain community discussions was a claim, unverified, carrying no official ruling, unsupported by any open investigation, that her death was not natural. That claim is an allegation. It is not a finding. What there is a sign placed on a street under active federal investigation with a dead woman's name alongside the name of the missing woman, taken by Pima County detectives as evidence on day 50. And here is what that evidence collection tells us. Not about Carol Shemick, not about Yavapai County, not about whether any allegation is true, or it tells us that trained investigators working an active federal kidnapping case looked at those signs and concluded that bagging one was the correct response. They did not photograph it and leave. They treated it the way investigators treat objects that may be relevant to a crime. They collected it. Evidence collection is a decision. When an item is collected, a trained professional has concluded this rises to the threshold of relevance. Someone standing on that street on day 50 looked at a handwritten name from Yavapai County alongside references to a sheriff's department and a fire agency 224 miles from Tucson and decided this needs to go to the lab. That decision is itself a piece of information. And the license plate, CBD 2273, written on the second sign is the most immediately actionable piece of information this entire cluster of clues has produced. A real plate number on a real vehicle means a real registered owner. It means investigators can run it, identify who drove to Nancy Guthrie Street, and find out what that person knows, or believes they know, about what happened on February 1st. That person is either someone with a connection between these cases that no investigator has yet made, or someone who has information about Nancy Guthrie's disappearance, who does not trust law enforcement enough to call a tip line, and who chose the only form of communication that felt safe to them, placing a handwritten name on a public street outside a house that the whole world is watching. 4 things. The flashlight in the mouth. The car on Via Entrada. 16 hours before she was taken. The neighborhood that went dark, house by house, each resident certain it was only their problem. And the yellow signs that stood in the Arizona sun for 50 days while hundreds of people walked past. 4 things. Visible the entire time. Invisible to everyone. And here is what the frame shows when it is finally assembled. This was not a random crime. This was not an opportunistic home invasion. This was a planned, multi-layered, operationally sophisticated operation conducted by someone who understood infrastructure, who knew this neighborhood from the inside, who came on 3 consecutive Saturdays to build the certainty required to move through a maze in complete darkness without hesitation. And who, on the night of February 1st, 2026, at 2 in the morning, on a porch in the Catalina foothills, put a flashlight between his teeth, the way his body had always done, the way his body had been trained to do, in the dark, with both hands occupied, working. That is the mistake. That is the detail that was invisible for 54 days. And according to what the documented evidence shows, it is the detail that has a category now, a vocational fingerprint, on a man who has spent years working in tight spaces with inadequate light, on a man who knows where the utility boxes are, on a man who drove via Entrada on 3 consecutive Saturdays, in daylight, so his body would know the route when his eyes could not see it. The FBI knows what they are looking for. 1. The DNA from the scene is being processed in 2 separate laboratories. The subpoenas for short-term rental records and construction worker names have been issued. The license plate CBD2273 has been run. And the flashlight, the one detail that was in the footage from day 1, published by the FBI, written about in hundreds of articles, invisible for 54 days, has a name now. It will not be invisible much longer. The flashlight is named. The road is mapped. The neighborhood that went dark has been documented. The yellow signs have been collected as evidence. And somewhere in this investigation, behind the DNA results, behind the subpoenas, behind the license plate that has already been run, the frame that was invisible for 54 days is now the frame investigators are working from. As of March 30th to 2026, day 58, this is the confirmed status of the investigation. No suspect has been publicly named. No arrest has been made. Nancy Guthrie's whereabouts remain unknown. The DNA recovered from the scene is being processed in 2 separate laboratories. The Pima County Sheriff's Department and the FBI Joint Task Force remain active. Sheriff Chris Nanos is facing a formal recall effort, a unanimous no-confidence vote from his own deputies, 241-0, and a formal inquiry from the Pima County Board of Supervisors into his disciplinary history. A Pima County Sheriff's deputy, Travis Reynolds, 22 years old, was arrested on March 26 and charged with kidnapping. He was fired the same day. His case has no confirmed connection to the Nancy Guthrie investigation. But his arrest, inside the same department leading this investigation, is a fact that belongs in this record. The Guthrie family has offered $1 million for information leading to Nancy's recovery. The FBI is offering an additional $100,000. You can remain anonymous. The investigation is not cold. The frame has been built. The mistake has been named. And somewhere in this city, according to what the documented evidence now shows, someone is walking around not knowing that their own body gave them away. Savannah Guthrie said she wakes up every night in the dark and imagines her mother's terror. She said it is unthinkable, but those thoughts demand to be thought. Her name is Nancy Long Guthrie. She is not a case number. She is not a file. She is not background. Why, she is the woman who told her daughter, in the darkest days after losing her husband, "You have to get up and decide and do. Just decide and do." She is the woman who watched church services every Sunday morning. She is the woman who lived in that community for more than 50 years. And on the morning of February 1st, 2026, someone who had studied her street for 3 consecutive Saturdays who knew her road in the dark because he had learned it in the light, carried her out of her home, in her pajamas and her bare feet, without her medicine. He planned the camera, he planned the utility box, he planned the route, he planned the 41 minutes. He did not plan the flashlight because you cannot plan what your body does automatically. And that is exactly how they will find him. Nancy Long Guthrie deserves answers. Her family deserves answers. And according to what the evidence now shows, the answer has been sitting in that footage since February 10th, visible the whole time, finally named. If you have information about Nancy Guthrie's disappearance, contact the FBI tip line at 1-800-CALL-FBI. The total reward is $1.1 million. You can remain anonymous. This video presents analysis based exclusively on publicly documented evidence and statements attributed to named sources. All individuals referenced in connection with this investigation are presumed innocent unless and until formally charged and convicted in a court of law. The Guthrie family has been officially cleared as suspects by the Pima County Sheriff's Department, and no individual not named by law enforcement is identified or implied as a suspect in this video. The purpose of this channel is to examine documented evidence, not to prosecute, advocate, or speculate beyond what confirmed reporting supports. The silenced case, where documented evidence reveals what someone decided you shouldn't know.